right, so for this lab, we're going to do Inter-VLAN routing, things that I want just to clarify quickly. All right, so we're going to be using GNS3, just as I said, and this is our lab. Let me just give you a scenario. This is our lab. We've got 2 routers, we've got 2 switches, and we've got 4 PCs. You're going to have this lab posted in your Netacad account and the general. I'm going to post this lab for you. Then another thing that I want to introduce to you guys, I'm going to be using RDM for my console management. So basically, RDM is terminal, I wouldn't say terminal program, it's a management platform that allows you to connect to different devices and all of that. So I'll give you an example. Is these are telnet sessions. I can actually add like Winbox. I can add if I need to access anything via the browser. So let me just quickly give you an idea. This doesn't work. That would have been cool. Okay, let me just show you guys here. I can actually add, no, I can't because I have to put my password and I don't want you guys to see my password. But anyway, you must have a look at this. But you can quite load pretty much anything that you can imagine. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's basically free. You don't have to pay for it. So let's have a look at what we have here. We have this lab. So I've got the lab. I've got D1, D2, R1, R3, PC1, PC2, PC3, and PC4. Okay. So let's go to our lab. This is what we need to do. And just to explain this a little bit better, guys, I want you to understand this. When you look at a lab, before you even look at the instructions, you should be able to have an idea of what needs to be happening here. Okay, so I haven't even looked at the lab, but the information that is here, the lab says we're going to be implementing VLAN routing or inter-VLAN routing. By looking at this, I can see this is a multi-layer switch, and we're going to be doing VLAN routing on a layer 3 switch. So between the VLAN or VLAN 50 and VLAN 60, we're going to be routing between the two. I can already see that if we are doing that, it means likelihood this could be also a layer 3 port. We are actually doing routing because we have to assign an IP address on this interface that makes this port a layer 3 port. If I look on the other side, I can see that we are going to have .1Q VLAN tags on the router itself. That tells me that this port is going to be a trunk. But if I look at the setup or the instructions, no one talks about anything about configuring a trunk. They don't say configure a trunk. They are hoping that by just looking at this diagram, you should figure out that you're going to need configure G10/11 as a trunk port. Then also, the other issue that I have, which I want you guys to know, is that these ports are different because I'm using a different program altogether. So this is slightly different. So my interfaces are not the same as what you see here. So what we're going to be doing to figure our ports out, we're going to look at GNS3. Also, we can also use short CDP neighbors to see which router goes to where or which device connects to where. So what I want to do first is I want to assign my devices names, because then at least I'll be able to know which device is connecting where. So let's get started. We're going to go to D1 and we're going to configure hostname D1. All right. I'm used to save every single time I make a configuration. So I'm going to go to D2, enable, configure terminal, do save R1. Let's go back to R1, enable, configure terminal, and hostname R1 and R3. That will be enable, configure terminal, and hostname is R3. Oh, hostname R3, which is, sorry, put in calculator, hostname R3. All right, so we have our names. What I'm going to do now is all my switch interfaces, as you know, your switch by default, the ports are not are switched on, so they are switched on. So if I go and type show IP interface brief, I can see that the ports that are connected to our devices are up, but that tells me that these ports are not going to they're not going to routers, because by default ports going to a router, they are going to be switched off. So for example, if I go to router 1 and I press end, show IP interface brief, I can see that all my ports are off. And if I do the same with router 3, also my ports are down. So what I want to do, I could have literally figure out which port goes where here and label my ports, so that I know gigabit 0/0 goes to this device, 0/1 goes to this. That would be the most responsible thing to do. But I'm going to do that now. I'm going to switch on my ports on my router, and I use show CDP neighbors to figure out which port goes where. So I'm going to go to config terminal, and I'm going to go and enable all my ports. Actually, I need to enable the first two because those are the connected ones. G0/1. Let's be secure. We need to make sure that we're not, we try and mimic a real world environment. We don't go and enable ports that we're not using. That causes a lot of problems. For security reasons, we need to make sure that any port that is not used need to be shut down. Okay, that's the proper way of doing that. So show IP interface brief. I've got my two ports on. I'm going to go. They are actually working simply because the switches are already they would have detected that I've got something connected. All right. Yeah, so let's go to router 3. We'll do the same. Configure terminal interface G0/0 no shut, and G0/1 no shut, and so we now have all our ports configured properly. So now let's go back to our lab. What we're gonna do in this lab, by the way, I don't have a serial connection on this router. They do not support any serial connection. It's an IOSV, doesn't have any serial capabilities, only Ethernet. So what we're gonna be doing is, what I've done in this lab is I have another Ethernet connection instead of a serial connection. It's not really a big deal. What I'm going to do in the first part of the video is I am going to do this section here. So I'm going to do this section. Then in the second part of the video, I'm going to do the second section. Unless if the video becomes, I don't want the video to go more than 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. So I'd rather split the videos into two. If there are two, we'll see how far we can take this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to router 1 and configure this port, the port that goes to gigabit 10/11. So I'll go to router 1 and I'll type the command show CDP neighbors, because I want to see which of these ports is actually D1. So D1 is gigabit 0/1 on the router. That goes to gigabit 0/0 on the switch. So I'll go and go to the global configuration interface G0/1. Interface G0/1, then I'll go and assign the version 4 IP address, which is, so if I go to router 1, I think this is the port. Okay, we're gonna copy that IP address, and I'm gonna copy the public IP address, and I'm gonna copy that. So I'll copy all three addresses. Then I'll go to router 1 and I'm gonna type IP address. Then I'm gonna assign the the IPv4 first, IP address control V, that. Okay, 255.255.255.0, and I'm gonna assign the IPv6, so IPv6 address. Then command V, we wanna type that one, we're gonna paste that one, and we're gonna do IPv6 again address, and we're going to assign the link local address. then I'll type link local. Okay, so I do have 4 IP. Let's do show IP interface brief. I've got 10.1.13.1. If I look at show IPv6 interface brief, I do have the link local address, and I've got the global unicast address. So we're done on router 1. I'm going to jump into D1. So D1, the port that is connected to a router is gigabit 0/0. So I'm now on D1, and I am going to show CDP. I know the port already. Just want to show you guys how my thought process. So on D1, gigabit 0/0, it is the port that is connected to our router 1 on gigabit 0/1. We already have configured gigabit 0/1. So I'm going to, by default, IP routing is enabled on this platform. So I don't have to do that, but you could do it if you want. IP routing, it's already enabled, so you don't have to do this command. This allows a layer 3 switch to run as a layer 3 switch. By default, you might find that older operating systems that probably you would need to enable IP routing to allow the router to the switch to perform as a layer 3 device. So I'm going to interface gigabit 0/0. It's very important actually to put a description. So this is connection to R1. All right. Then I am going to say no switch port. Now this becomes a layer 3 port. I'm going to assign a public global unicast address. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to copy literally all of the IP address. I'm going to copy all of them. I'm going to go back to D1. And I'm going to type IP address. We'll start with the IPv4 address. So IP address 10.1 255.255.255.0. And we're going to do IPv6 address. We're going to do the global unicast address, and I'm going to do the link local. Control V. Did I copy the link local? I don't think I did. So the link local, yeah, I did not copy. So now right and copy. Let's put the link local. Okay, there we go. We're going to save our configuration. So far, we've done configuration between our router and our D1 switch. What I want you to learn, guys, is that don't configure everything and start testing to make sure that everything is working at once. Test whatever you're done to make sure that whatever you're done is working. Imagine if you were to run OSPF on top of this, and BGP on top of this, and MPLS on top of this. It's going to be difficult to know where the problem started, what is working, what is not working. So at least when you verify each stage, you know that I've eliminated that everything is working. At layer 2, everything is working. At layer 3, everything is working. So you need to make sure that you test at every stage. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to ping. We're going to ping 10.1.1.1. I think, what is the IP address again? Control V. 10.1.13.1. Let's ping it. There we go. We have reachability at IPv4. Now, what we need to do is we're going to ping the public IP address, which would be that IP address. See, boom, everything's working. So we know that our IPv6 address connectivity is working. Our IPv4 is working. So what we need to do now, let's go back to our lab. We've done this part, router 1 to D1, we're done. Now I need to go and create VLANs, VLAN 50 and VLAN 60, okay, and assign this IP address on the switch virtual interface of VLAN 50 and of VLAN 60. So we're doing inter-VLAN routing on the actual switch. Okay, so I'm going to go back to D1. I'm going to go into global configuration. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go into VLAN 50, VLAN 60. All right, exit out. I'll go to interface VLAN 50, and I'm going to assign VLAN 50 an IP address, which would be so D1 again. VLAN 50 will be 10.2.50.1. That's the IPv4, and this is the IPv6, and this is the link local address. Okay, I'm gonna copy that link local. So we're gonna go back to D1. Okay, and what are we gonna do? IP address. We are going to put the v4 address first. Okay, 255.255.255.0, and IPv6 address. We are going to put the public IP address. IPv6 address. We are going to put that. Was it? Yeah, I think so. That will be link local. All right, so we have the IP address. Now, before I go anywhere further here, I want to explain to you guys something here. Show IPv6, show IP interface brief. Now, our VLAN 50, when you create your VLAN 50, by default, it's going to be shut down. So I need to enable that port. So I'm going to go into global configuration and type interface VLAN 50. I'm going to type no shut, and okay, let's run our command again. Let's see here. Now, if you go down, you're going to see that your VLAN 50, it has an IP address. We've switched on the interface, but it is still down. Okay, we do have VLANs 50 and VLAN 60 created, but they don't have any assigned ports. So for a switch virtual interface to come up, you either have to have a port that is assigned into that VLAN, or you need to have a trunk port that allows that VLAN to pass through. Otherwise, this port will never come up. Okay, and I see a lot of my students in the battle with this part. So what I need to do now is I need to assign this port into VLAN 50. So I will have to go to my lab now and figure out which port this is. So this is port D1 from port 2. So that will be 012. That is port number 3. So in other words, if I go to my geez, sorry guys. If I go to my D1, that is my port number 3. So show IP interface brief. So gigabit 0/2 is the port that is actually going to that PC, which is PC1. So I need to go into that port interface gigabit 0/2. I'll rather put a description here. Description connection to PC1 like this. Then I'm gonna assign. I'm gonna say no switch port. Then switch port. What am I doing? Sorry guys. Sorry. Switch port. Then switch port access VLAN 50. Okay. Then I'm gonna press enter. Then if I type show IP interface brief, for some reason, what is happening here? Let me just move my camera a little bit. I typed the wrong command. Then you're gonna have to wait. I'm gonna pause the video. So you wanna make sure that you type the command no IP domain lookup so that you don't have this problem. Okay. So actually, I'm gonna do that now. No IP domain dash lookup. I don't have this problem again. So you can see that my VLAN 50 came up. Okay. So if I type show IP interface brief, I'm gonna pipe this include 50, I think. Let's do that. So VLAN 50, the port is manually up. All right. So I'm gonna pause the video. Actually, I don't have to. I don't want my videos to be too long, but anyway, I'm gonna actually configure VLAN interface VLAN 60. VLAN 60. No shutdown. Then IPv6 address. Let's quickly go and copy the IP address. So this is VLAN 60. I'll copy the IPv6 address. Copy. We go to D1. We're gonna assign that. Then we're gonna go back. We're gonna copy the link local. We'll go back to D1 IPv6 address, and we are going to paste that link local. I am going to go and do that for, again, IPv4 address, IP address, assign that 255.255.255.0, assign that. All right, so this is done. If I were to verify this, show IP interface brief. Okay, so I've done so 0/1 is the port connecting to the PC. So it's gigabit 0/1 is the port that is going to this PC here, which is in VLAN 60. So I'm going to global configuration mode, interface G0/1, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 60, and description connection to PC2. That's it, right? PC2. That's VLAN 60. So that's pretty much it. Show IP interface brief. Let's see our VLAN 60. It is still down because that should actually come up. We've already assigned the port. So if we type show VLAN, we can see that our VLAN 60, we've already assigned a port. So in any minute, our port should come up. Let's give it a moment. Yeah, there we go. Our port is up. Now let's just go to make sure that we do have connectivity from our own PCs. I think I've already assigned the IP addresses to save us a lot of time. Anyway, let's have a look. Test 1, 2, 3, PC1. So I'm going to PC2, open networking and sharing center, local area network. Details, let's see. Yes, I do have an IP address 10.2.60.50. My default gateway is 10.2.60.1, which is my VLAN 60, my switch virtual interface on my D1 router. So what I'm going to do is I want to ping that IP address, ping 10.2.60.1. That is not the correct IP address. .1. There we go. So we can ping our gateway, which means we have connectivity to our gateway. Let's test the IPv6 connectivity. So I do have, what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to, well, I could literally just, what is this IP address? 1060. I can, I don't think actually I can paste from my window because yeah, I can't. So what I'll do, I mean, this is what I'll do is I'll go to properties and I'm going to go to TCP/IP-VLAN6. I'm going to copy the IP address, the gateway. I copy the gateway and I'm going to ping the default gateway, paste. There we go. We can ping our default gateway. So this is working as well. Let's go to PC1, IP config. I'll do it differently this time. We do have the default gateway. So I'm gonna mark, I'll copy the default gateway, which is 1050, mark. All right. Then we are going to ping our default gateway, ping, we paste this in. Nice, it's working. Let's test our IPv4, ping 10.2.50.1. So we can ping. So what have we done in this lab? I'm going to end this lab here, but let's just have a look at what we have done. We have configured this port between router 1 and D1. Okay, we have seen that since we need to assign an IP address on the physical port of our D1, what it meant is that our D1 port must be configured as a routed port. That's why we went into the port and we said no switch port. Okay, we assigned the IP address. We went to gigabit 0 slash, I think it was 0/1. We went in and assigned the IP address. So between router 1 and D1, we have done the configuration. We went into the switch. We saw that on the table here, they have given us a VLAN 50 and the IP address. And if we look at the diagram, we can see that we are doing routing, inter-VLAN routing within our layer 3 switch. So what we needed to make sure was that our layer 3 switch has been configured as a layer 3 switch, because by some, depending on the version, sometimes it doesn't come as layer 3. You need to go into global configuration mode and type the command IP routing to enable IP routing on the switch. We went and then configured our interfaces with both IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. Once we did that, we realized that the ports did not come up by default. They were actually administratively shut down. We went into those interfaces. We typed the command not shut down to make sure that the port comes up. But once we have done that, we also realized that the port does not actually come up. It stays in down state. And we found out that we were supposed to ensure that our ports are assigned to the VLANs. We have to have at least one single port that is in up state that is assigned to a VLAN as an access port, or we need to have a trunk port that is carrying those VLANs for those VLANs, for those virtual or SVI ports to come up. I hope you guys have found this informative, and I'll see you guys in the part 2 of this video. Cheers, guys. Thank you.